The ground beneath your feet is not a foundation. It is a burial ground, layer upon layer of worlds that once reached for the stars only to be erased in a single night. We stand atop the ruins of 6 forgotten ages, convinced by a comforting illusion that we are the first to truly master this planet. But the past refuses to remain silent. From radioactive scars that hint at ancient wars, to drowned cities built with impossible geometry, to dormant instructions encoded deep within your own DNA. The truth is forcing its way back into the light. Locked inside the geological record are artifacts that should not exist. Machinery entombed in coal, millions of years old. Megaliths engineered to move stone with sound maps depicting Earth as it was before the ice retreated. These are not accidents. They are remnants of a cataclysmic engine, a recurring planetary reset that wipes civilization clean every few thousand years. We are not the authors of history. We are its survivors. Tonight, we assemble the shattered mirror of the past to glimpse the most unsettling reflection of all our future. We are the 7th cycle, and the 8th is already at the door. Before we go further, ignite that like button and brace yourself for what's coming. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is there. As always, the visuals are only here to add context. You don't need them to follow the truth. So whether you're watching closely or just listening in, settle back and let the outside world fade away. Thank you for standing with us. Prepare yourself. Let's begin. For nearly 200,000 years, human beings lived as simple hunter-gatherers sheltering in caves, shaping flint, surviving one day at a time, with no cities, no architecture, no advanced mathematics, and no recorded sense of history. Then, almost overnight, something changed. Around 12,000 years ago, a switch was flipped. Agriculture appeared. The wheel was invented. Writing emerged. The first cities rose from the earth. According to the standard narrative, this was the dawn of civilization. And today we are told we stand at its absolute peak, the smartest, most advanced humans to have ever lived. But there's a fatal flaw in that story. It doesn't match the evidence. When you strip away textbooks and look directly at the raw data pulled from the ground, the ladder of progress collapses. The timeline we've been taught isn't just incomplete, it's a carefully constructed illusion designed to impose order on a chaotic past. Reality is far more unstable. The evidence suggests that civilization is not a straight line, but a cycle, a loop that repeats itself. We are not the first to build a global society. We are merely the latest occupants of a planet that has hosted advanced cultures again and again before us. When we connect the geological anomalies and archaeological outliers that mainstream science prefers to dismiss, a startling pattern emerges. We are living in the 7th iteration of human civilization. 6 times before humanity rose, organized itself, engineered wonders, and 6 times it was erased, leaving behind only the most durable echoes of its existence. To understand why the traditional ladder theory fails, we need to revisit the Neolithic Revolution, the moment humans supposedly shifted from nomads to farmers. We're told this transition happened independently in Mesopotamia, the Indus Valley, China, and the Americas within the same narrow window of time. But ask yourself why? Why would populations separated by vast oceans and mountain ranges who had survived successfully as foragers for hundreds of thousands of years suddenly abandon that lifestyle all at once? Why farming? Why cities? Why permanence? The mathematical odds of such synchronized cultural evolution occurring by coincidence are vanishingly small. And it becomes even more suspicious when we examine the sophistication of these early civilizations. They don't stumble forward like beginners. They don't experiment and fail. They arrive fully formed. Ancient Sumer, often called the cradle of civilization, appears in the archaeological record almost overnight. One moment scattered settlements, the next a complete society, complex legal systems, advanced writing, precise irrigation networks, and a deep understanding of astronomy. Even more telling, the Sumerians never claimed to invent this knowledge. Their own clay tablets state plainly that it was inherited, passed down from the gods or from a time before the great floods. We dismiss these claims as myth, but from an engineering perspective, what we see looks less like an invention and more like a recovery. A reboot, a civilization restarting after a catastrophic system crash. And once you see it, the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. They do not begin slowly. They show none of the awkward trial and error of beginners. Ancient Sumer, often described as the cradle of civilization in modern-day Iraq, enters the archaeological record almost fully formed. One moment, there are only scattered settlements. The next, a complete society emerges, complex legal systems, a sophisticated writing script, advanced irrigation networks, and a precise understanding of the stars above. Even more striking, the Sumerians never claimed to have invented these achievements themselves. Their own clay tablets state plainly that this knowledge was inherited, passed down from the gods, or from a forgotten age before the great floods. We dismiss these accounts as mythology, but from an engineering standpoint, the evidence points to something very different. This doesn't look like a beginning. It looks like a restart, like lost data being recovered, like a civilization rebooting after a catastrophic crash. The most devastating blow to the linear model of history came not from Mesopotamia, but from Turkey, at a site known as Göbekli Tepe. For decades, the official timeline insisted that organized religion and monumental architecture could only arise after agriculture. The logic was simple. Hunter-gatherers supposedly lacked both the manpower and the food surplus required to quarry, transport, and erect massive stone structures. Then, Göbekli Tepe was uncovered. The site consists of enormous T-shaped limestone pillars, some weighing up to 50 tons, arranged in precise circular formations. When organic material from the plaster was carbon dated, the results stunned the scientific community approximately 9,600 BC, nearly 12,000 years ago. That makes Göbekli Tepe 6,000 years older than Stonehenge and 7,000 years older than the Great Pyramid of Giza. According to the official narrative, humans at this time were barely emerging from the Ice Age armed with little more than stone spears and a survival mindset. Yet here they were demonstrating advanced knowledge of geometry, masonry, symbolic art, and large-scale planning that rivals the achievements of Rome or classical Greece. Even more unsettling, the site was not destroyed by war or natural disaster. It was intentionally buried. The builders carefully covered the entire complex with thousands of tons of soil before disappearing, as if sealing their knowledge in a time capsule meant for a distant future. Göbekli Tepe proves beyond reasonable doubt that advanced civilization existed thousands of years earlier than textbooks allow. It is the smoking gun that shatters the linear timeline. So if sophisticated cultures existed that far back, where did they go? Why don't we find their skyscrapers, their machines, their highways, or their waste? The answer lies in material science and a powerful cognitive trap known as survivorship bias. We assume that because we find stone ruins, stone must represent the height of ancient technology. In reality, stone is simply the only material durable enough to survive deep time. Imagine our modern civilization erased tomorrow by a solar flare, a supervolcano, or nuclear winter. The traces of our world would vanish far faster than we expect. Iron and steel would rust and collapse within centuries. Concrete would crack, erode, and turn to dust. Plastics would fragment into microscopic particles or be buried beneath sediment. Wood would rot, paper would dissolve, and digital data, the sum total of our knowledge, would disappear almost instantly once power grids failed and servers corroded. Within less than 10,000 years, A blink in geological time, nearly all evidence of the 21st century would be gone. What would remain? Stone monuments, Mount Rushmore, the Hoover Dam, perhaps the foundations of great bridges. Future archaeologists would study these remnants and conclude that we were a primitive culture, obsessed with carving rock, never realizing that silicon chips and fiber optics truly defined our world. This is the cyclical illusion. We mistake the absence of evidence for evidence of absence. Because we don't stumble across ancient smartphones, we assume ancient people were simple. But Earth is a ruthless recycler. Tectonic plates subduct entire continents into magma. Glaciers grind cities into dust. Rising seas swallow coastlines, the very places advanced civilizations prefer to build. History appears linear only because the evidence of previous cycles has been crushed, submerged, or melted away. Yet Earth is not a perfect criminal. It always leaves clues, anomalies that defy conventional explanations, artifacts that don't fit the timeline, structures that appear far too early. When we stop viewing history as a straight line and begin seeing it as a sine wave, a series of rises and collapses, the chaos of our past suddenly resolves into a pattern. And that pattern tells a far more unsettling story. The sudden emergence of Sumer, the impossible precision of the pyramids. The flood myths shared across the globe and the eerily accurate calendars of the Maya are not isolated enigmas. They are fragments of the same story. They are the debris of a previous cycle, the technological and cultural inheritance left behind by a civilization that collapsed before our own ever began. We are living in an age of amnesia. We have convinced ourselves that we are the first to master this planet. Yet Earth operates on a timescale far beyond human intuition, governed by celestial rhythms such as the precession of the equinoxes, a 920-year cycle that ancient cultures tracked with astonishing accuracy. They understood that Earth moves through seasons, long ages of stability, followed by inevitable periods of catastrophe. We are merely living in a summer phase, unaware that winters have come before, and blind to the truth that the ruins beneath our feet are not the beginning of our story, but the tragic final chapter of one that came before us. As we peel back the layers of the Earth, we stop finding primitive beginnings and start encountering impossibilities, objects that should not exist, artifacts that imply the previous inhabitants of this planet were far more advanced than we are comfortable admitting. According to the standard historical model, the ground beneath us is supposed to function like a perfectly ordered library. Dig down and you move backward through time. Near the surface lie modern trash, discarded soda cans and plastic waste. A little deeper, Victorian pottery. Deeper still, Roman coins and iron arrowheads. Beneath that, crude Paleolithic stone tools. Eventually, you reach layers where no trace of humanity should exist at all. Strata dating back to the age of dinosaurs or the Carboniferous forests that predate mammals entirely. This principle is known as the law of superposition, the foundational rule of geology. But there's a problem. Every so often, miners, construction workers, and amateur geologists uncover objects that violate this law so completely that the scientific establishment often refuses to engage with them at all. These discoveries are known as out-of-place artifacts, OU parts. They are the glitches in the historical record, manufactured objects unmistakably technological, found sealed inside solid rock or coal seams, dated to be millions of years old. If history truly followed a single linear path from primitive ignorance to modern sophistication, these objects could not exist. Their very presence suggests the timeline we've been taught is not merely incomplete, but fundamentally broken. Consider the case of the London hammer. In the mid-1930s, a couple hiking near London, Texas, noticed an unusual rock resting on a ledge near a waterfall. Embedded within it was a fragment of wood. Furious, they brought the rock home and cracked it open. Inside was a hammer, not a crude stone tool, but a hammer with a wooden handle and a metal head indistinguishable from tools used in the 18th or 19th century. The problem wasn't the hammer, it was the rock. The tool was encased in Cretaceous limestone, a formation dated by geological surveys to between 100 and 140 million years old. For the hammer to be naturally embedded in that stone, it would have had to fall into soft sediment before it hardened during a time when Tyrannosaurus rex ruled the land, and flowering plants were only just beginning to appear. Skeptics quickly dismissed it as a hoax or a concretion, a natural mineral formation that merely resembled a tool. But laboratory analysis complicated that explanation. The iron head was found to be extraordinarily pure beyond what modern refining typically achieves. It also contained chlorine, an element that normally accelerates corrosion, yet the hammer had not rusted. Instead, it had developed a unique chemical sheath that protected the metal, implying a sophisticated understanding of metallurgy and alloy science. If it were a hoax, it would require altering the molecular structure of iron and fossilizing wood inside solid limestone, two feats that border on the impossible. And the London hammer is not alone. Coal presents an even more unsettling problem. We understand how coal forms ancient forest die, are buried by sediment, and are compressed under immense pressure over roughly 300 million years. So when a man-made object is found inside a lump of coal, we are forced to confront two disturbing possibilities. Either coal forms far faster than science claims, or industrial activity existed hundreds of millions of years ago. In 1885, at a foundry in Austria, a worker split open a block of coal and discovered a strange iron object now known as the Salzburg cube, or Wolfsegg iron. Weighing nearly a kilogram, it featured sharply defined edges and two deeply incised parallel grooves. It was unmistakably manufactured, not a natural mineral formation. The coal it came from dated to the Tertiary period, between 20 and 60 million years old, long before the first apes walked upright. The object was analysed, debated, and eventually placed in a museum where it remains largely ignored. Not because it was explained, but because it does not fit the accepted narrative. Even more troubling are the discoveries that disappear. In 1961, 3 rock collectors in California's Coso Mountains found what appeared to be an ordinary geode. When they cut it open with a diamond saw, the blade was destroyed. Inside was not crystal, but a circular object made of white porcelain containing a metal shaft and a hexagonal magnetic washer. By every technical definition, it was a spark plug. X-rays revealed an internal spring and a central electrode identical to those found in 20th century combustion engines. Yet the geode surrounding it was embedded in hardened clay and fossil shells dated to at least 500,000 years old. The implications are staggering. A spark plug implies an engine implies fuel processing, advanced metallurgy, precision manufacturing, and an industrial society. If the object truly dates back 500,000 years, it belonged to a civilization that existed long before Homo sapiens emerged. And yet, you will not find the Coso artifact displayed in any major museum today. Some anomalies are debated, others are quietly erased. And together they whisper the same forbidden conclusion: history is not a straight line, it is a cycle repeatedly broken and rebuilt upon the bones of forgotten worlds. After briefly capturing public attention, the artifact vanished. Officially misplaced. Quietly hidden. A fate that seems to follow a suspicious number of these anomalies once they become too inconvenient to explain. Historical records from the 19th century only deepen the mystery. At that time, coal mining was done by hand. Miners worked directly inside the seams, and strange discoveries were far harder to ignore. In 1852, a report was submitted to the Society of Antiquaries of Scotland describing an iron instrument, possibly a drill bit or machine component, found embedded inside a lump of coal from a Glasgow mine. 8 years earlier, the Times of London reported a gold thread discovered encased in solid stone, quarried 8 feet below ground. In Illinois, a woman breaking coal for her stove uncovered an intricately crafted gold chain inside the coal itself. When the coal split, the chain remained firmly anchored in both halves, proving it had not simply fallen in later. Mainstream science has a method for dealing with such discoveries. It's called the knowledge filter. This is a cognitive and institutional bias in which evidence supporting the accepted model is amplified, while evidence that contradicts it is dismissed as contamination, hoax, or error, because the consequences of acceptance are severe. A university professor who publicly acknowledges that a machined metal object was found in 300-million-year-old coal isn't merely reporting a curiosity. They are challenging geology, anthropology, and human history simultaneously. Careers have ended for less, so the artifacts are labelled problematic, filed away, and quietly placed into forgotten drawers, never to be discussed again. But for those willing to look, the pattern is unmistakable. These objects consistently display advanced alloys, precise machining, and impossible geological contexts. Together, they suggest something profoundly unsettling. Earth is not just a cradle of life, it is a graveyard of prior industrial ages. Just as our plastic bottles, titanium implants, and silicon chips may one day be fossilized into rock, we are now uncovering the durable remnants of civilizations that came before us. Their existence forces a radical reconsideration of the timeline of intelligence on this planet. High technology may not be a unique achievement of the modern era, but a recurring phenomenon. We may be staring at the remains of a civilization that mastered metallurgy and mechanics, flourished for millennia, and was then obliterated by a cataclysm so vast it folded the planet's surface over them, compressing cities into coal seams and turning tools into fossils. And if small handheld objects can survive geological time, what about larger ones? Civilizations don't build only tools. They build cities, steel rusts, wood rots, but stone endures. When we shift our attention from microscopic anomalies hidden in rock to the rocks themselves, we encounter a different kind of impossibility, not chemical, but physical. Stone so massive, so precisely cut and moved across such distances that even with modern cranes and hydraulics replicating these feats would be extraordinarily difficult. This brings us to the next layer of the mystery impossible masonry hiding in plain sight. If the artifacts buried in coal seams are whispers of a forgotten age, then the megalithic structures scattered across the planet are its screams. They stand openly before us, visited by millions of tourists each year, yet they may be the most misunderstood objects on Earth. We are told a very specific story that these structures were built by ancient peoples armed with little more than copper chisels, stone hammers, hemp ropes, and unlimited labour. We are asked to believe that the Great Pyramid of Giza, the fortress of Sacsayhuaman in Peru, and the colossal temples of Baalbek in Lebanon were constructed by cultures that had not yet invented the wheel or hardened steel. But bring a modern engineer or a master stonemason to these sites, and the official story collapses. This is not simply a question of effort, it is a question of impossible physics. Take the Great Pyramid of Giza. It is not merely a pile of stones, it is a structure composed of approximately 2.3 million blocks, weighing a combined total of nearly 6 million tons. Its alignment to true north is accurate to within a fraction of a degree precision that even modern observatories struggle to achieve. And the pyramid is not four-sided, it is eight-sided. This subtle concavity is invisible from the ground, but aerial photographs taken during the equinox reveal a dramatic play of light and shadow down the center of each face. Achieving this requires maintaining a consistent curvature across acres of stone. Doing so with copper tools and guesswork would be effectively impossible. But the deepest mystery lies underground in the Serapeum of Saqqara. Hidden within a labyrinth carved into bedrock are more than 20 massive granite boxes. Each weighs roughly 70 tons, with lids exceeding 30 tons. They are made of rose granite, one of the hardest natural stones on Earth. Copper cannot cut granite. It bends, it dulls, it fails. Yet the interiors of these boxes are polished to a mirror finish. Precision measurements show perfectly square 90-degree angles and surfaces flat to within 2/10,000ths of an inch tolerances used today in aerospace and optical engineering. Why would a Bronze Age civilization working by torchlight in dusty tunnels require such laser-level precision for boxes that would be sealed forever? And how did they transport 100-ton objects through narrow tunnels with inches to spare? There is no room for teams of labourers and ropes. The logistics imply a technology we no longer understand. Perhaps methods of manipulating weight resonance or sound ideas preserved in ancient legends but rejected by modern physics. Travel to Peru and the mystery transforms again. At Sacsayhuaman, enormous limestone blocks weighing up to 120 tons are fitted together in complex polygonal shapes, some with a dozen angles. There is no mortar. The stones interlock so perfectly that not even a razor blade can slip between them. When earthquakes strike, modern buildings collapse, but these walls survive. The stones are engineered to move to absorb seismic energy, then settle back into place. It is earthquake-resistant architecture thousands of years ahead of its time. When Spanish conquistadors asked the Inca how these walls were built, the answer was simple. We didn't build them. They were already here. Closer inspection reveals something stranger still. The stones appear moulded, not carved. Some surfaces show vitrification. Rock melted into a glass-like sheen. Others bear scoop marks, as if the stone were soft-shaped like clay. This has led some researchers to propose lost technologies capable of softening stone through heat or chemical processes, allowing massive boulders to be shaped with ease. Then there is the problem of technological regression. In a normal technological timeline, innovation improves. But in the ancient world, we see the opposite. The oldest structures are the best. Later ones are crude imitations. In Egypt, the Great Pyramid is unmatched by those built centuries later. In Peru, rough Inca stonework sits atop flawless megalithic foundations. This is the signature of a post-apocalyptic world. Survivors inheriting ruins they could not replicate, building shelters atop the bones of gods. If such a civilization could move 1,000-ton stones and cut granite like butter, they surely built cities, ports, and trade hubs. So where are they? They would have lived where humans always live, along the coasts. And that is precisely where the evidence has gone. At the end of the last ice age, sea levels didn't rise slowly, they surged, swallowing millions of square miles of coastline. Entire civilizations were dragged beneath the waves, buried under sand and silence. 20,000 years ago, sea levels were 400 feet lower. Continental shelves were fertile plains filled with rivers and forests. When the ice melted, those lands vanished. For centuries, this was only theory, but now technology allows us to see beneath the ocean's veil. Sonar and underwater robotics reveal that the seafloor is not empty. It is littered with the remains of drowned kingdoms. Ancient Indian texts spoke of Dwarka, the golden city of Krishna swallowed by the sea. In the 1990s, sonar off India's coast revealed a submerged city stretching miles beneath the water. Artifacts dated to over 9,500 years ago were recovered older than Sumer, older than Egypt. In Japan, near Yonaguni Island, divers discovered a massive stepped stone structure with right angles, terraces, and possible carvings. Marine geologist Dr. Masaki Kimura argues it is a man-made monument over 10,000 years old. And in 2001, sonar scans off the coast of Cuba revealed something even more disturbing: symmetrical stone pyramids and grid-like streets at a depth of 2,000 feet. The story briefly surfaced in mainstream media, then vanished. No funding, no follow-up, silence. Because a city at that depth implies a catastrophe beyond accepted history, or a civilization so ancient it shatters the timeline entirely. And that is the true reason these discoveries remain buried. Not because they lack evidence, but because they reveal a history we are not yet ready to face.